Good afternoon, everyone. I call to order the December 12th, 2023 regular meeting of the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Commission. For the record, my name is Barbara Howard, and I serve as chair of the commission. Thanks for being patient. We decided to start a little late since this is our first time in this room. We wanted to make sure anyone could get over here. So, just a reminder to please silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. And if you are speaking, whether at the dais or giving testimony, be sure to speak directly into the microphone. Would the clerk please call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum?
Commissioner Bjornberg.
Present.
Booty is absent. Chair Howard.
Present.
Melblom.
Present.
Nystrom is absent. Vice Chair Sandbolt.
Present.
Maston.
Present.
Struthers is absent. Vander Eyck.
Here.
There are 6 members present.
Let the record reflect we do have quorum and that Commissioners Booty, Nystrom, and Struthers all provided proper notice that they have a conflict this afternoon, so their absences are excused. Our first order of business is to adopt an agenda for the meeting. We work from the agendas that are available over by the clerk. I'll go through the agenda and sort out any items to be withdrawn, items to be continued to a future meeting, items to be discussed, and items that will be put on the consent agenda to be approved as recommended by staff and without further discussion. And the agendas are in the back corner. All right, agendas are in the back corner. Item number 4, 106 25th Street East, Ward 10. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness. Item number 4 will be on consent unless someone wants to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation. Item number 5, 400 Prospect Avenue, Ward 11. Application number 5 is for demolition of a historic resource, and it will be discussed. So the proposed agenda, the consent agenda item, will be item number 4, 106 25th Street East, Ward 10. Is there any opposition from commissioners to the staff recommendations for this item? Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak in opposition to this item? Hearing no opposition to placing item number 4 on consent, we will approve consent items in one motion at the start of the meeting. One item will have staff presentation, public comment, and commission discussion and action, and that is item number 5, 400 Prospect Avenue, Ward 11. Commissioners may I have a motion to approve the proposed agenda.
Sandbolt, so moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sandbolt. Is there a second?
Maston seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Maston. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The agenda is approved. Our next order of business will be to approve the minutes from our November 28th, 2023 meeting. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Sandbolt, so moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sandbolt. Is there a second?
Maston seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Maston. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The minutes are approved. Before I open the hearing to public comments, let me summarize the process for conducting public hearing. First, we'll act on the consent agenda item that we just set. Once that item is approved, the commission is done with that item, and applicants may contact the planning staff tomorrow about next steps. After the consent agenda item is approved, we will take each remaining item in order. Planning staff will present its report, and commissioners typically ask questions of staff. Then I open the public hearing, and we'll hear from the applicant, and commissioners may ask questions of the applicant. After that, we'll invite public comment. If you wish to speak, we need you to do 2 things. Be sure to sign up on the sheet that is over by the clerk. If you haven't done this already, you can also do it afterwards. When you come up to testify, you have to state your name and address for the record. Since we have quite a few people here to speak on that one item, I'll limit the comments to 2 minutes each and ask that you focus on any new information that has not already been presented by others. If you have any materials to hand out, please give them to our clerk as well so that they can be distributed to the commission and entered into the public record. After the public comments are complete, I close that hearing item and the commissioners will deliberate and act on the application. So I will now open the public hearing on the consent agenda items. That's item number 4, 106 25th Street East, Ward 10. Again, do any commissioners oppose the staff recommendation for this item? Are there any members of the public who oppose the staff recommendation for this item? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing on that consent agenda item. May I have a motion to approve the staff findings and recommendations?
Melblom moves approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Bumblem. Is there a second?
Bjornberg seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Bjornberg. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Item number 4 is approved as recommended by staff on the agenda, and applicants can contact the planning staff about next steps. Our next item is item number 5, 400 Prospect Avenue, Ward 11. This application is for demolition of a historic resource. The staff report is presented by Aaron Kay.
Good afternoon, Chair Howard, Commissioners. My name is Erin Kay, and I'm a city planner in the Historic Preservation section of the Department of Community Planning and Economic Development, or CPED. I'm here today to present a demolition of historic resource application for the property located at 400 Prospect Avenue, which falls within the boundary of the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District. Staff brought a demolition of historic resource application for the same potential historic district before you in June. For the benefit of folks here in the room and also any watching online, I will begin with an overview of the process, summarize the history of the subject property and the potential historic district, and present staff findings on this application. My presentation will be a little bit longer than normal due to the complexities of this project, so thank you in advance for hanging in there with me. So I think it's important to start with a definition of the term historic resource. As stated in the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances, a historic resource is a property that is believed to have historical, cultural, architectural, archaeological, or engineering significance and to meet at least one of the criteria for designation as a landmark or historic district. So although a historic resource might meet the criteria to be designated, it is not something that has been formally designated. This proposed demolition came to CPED Historic Preservation staff via a wrecking permit application. Our team reviews all wrecking permit applications in the city to confirm whether or not the property proposed for demolition is a historic resource. If the property is a historic resource, then the applicant has to submit a demolition of historic resource application before we can approve demolition. The subject property is located at 400 Prospect Avenue in Tangletown, and it's outlined in a light blue color here. It is part of an area that has been identified as the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District. The applicant is proposing to demolish the house that is currently on this property. The property owner is planning to subdivide the lot into 2 residential lots and build 1 single-family dwelling on each lot. The proposed new construction will request development approvals at a later date and is not part of this application. I was assigned as the preservation reviewer on the wrecking permit for 400 Prospect Avenue in mid-November. I reached out to the applicant and explained that this property is a historic resource because it is located in the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District. This is the boundary of the potential historic district, and I know the term potential can be confusing. We use this term potential because the area has not been officially designated as a historic district. However, it has been determined to be historically significant, which I will explain momentarily. The potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District has been studied at various points over the last 40 years. A draft nomination to list the potential historic district in the National Register of Historic Places, or NRHP, was prepared in 1981. The NRHP is the country's official list of places important to our history. However, although a nomination was prepared, we don't know if it was ever submitted, and the potential historic district has not been formally listed in the National Register. This area was studied again in the 1990s in relation to an I-35W project that went through a Section 106 environmental review process, I don't want to get too into the weeds of what that is, but this type of review process requires a consideration of impacts to historic properties when projects are seeking federal funding or permitting. An outcome of this review is that the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO, determined that the potential historic district has historical significance, meets the necessary criteria, and is eligible for listing in the National Register. This is the first step before something gets listed. In 2005, the city hired consultants to do an architectural history survey of Southwest Minneapolis. The consultants recommended the potential historic district for local designation under Criterion 5 as a significant landscape design and/or pattern of development. However, local designation of this potential historic district has not been pursued. There is a formal process that has to be followed in order to designate something as a landmark or a historic district. For a demolition of historic resource application, staff first analyzed the significance and integrity of the property. And for this project, this included analyzing the individual property and also the potential historic district. This is a photo of the front elevation of the property at 400 Prospect Avenue, which generally faces south towards Prospect Avenue. It is sited at a slight angle parallel to the street. This is a view of the west elevation, and you can still see a part of the south or front elevation. This is a view of the north or rear elevation. And then this is a view of the front elevation and a little bit of the east elevation. The house was built in 1926 for Mogridge S. Robb and his wife Gertrude. Mogridge was an attorney. He also studied the history of the Kensington runestone, which was found in Douglas County, Minnesota, and may be evidence of Swedish explorers. Mogridge passed away in 1963, and Gertrude passed away in 1987. Their daughter Elizabeth appears to have been the owner until November 2022, when it was sold to the current owner. Construction of the house was announced in the Minneapolis Journal in August 1926, as shown here. It was called an Italian villa at the time. This house is an example of the Italian Renaissance or Italian Renaissance revival style, which was popular in the US from about 1890 to 1935. This house has many character-defining features of the style, including a low-pitched hipped roof, widely overhanging eaves supported by decorative brackets, a roof covered by terracotta tiles, smaller and less elaborate upper-story windows, round arches above several of the first-story windows, and a main entrance accented by a stone surround. The building is not completely symmetrical, as you might find in the style, but you can see even in this picture that there is some symmetry in the two bays around that main entrance bay. Staff finds that the house retains much of these details today based on photos provided by the applicant. The house has not experienced many exterior alterations since it was built. In 1963, an extra garage stall was built on the rear elevation. The windows appear to be original. The main door may be original, but the storm door appears to be non-historic. The original building permit identifies Robert C. Martin as the architect. Based on newspaper records, Martin designed several large period revival houses in Minneapolis in the late 1920s, and staff believes that the firm was active until the mid-1940s. The original contractor was Alex A. Nelson Company, which does not appear to have been a notable builder. So when originally platted in the late 1800s, this area on which the house was built was a large lot, outlined in red here on this plat map. And then the area got subdivided in the early 1900s to increase density in the neighborhood, as you can see in the 1903 map at the top. And so again, the subject property is outlined in red. The house in question was ultimately built on 2 lots, as you can see on the 1949 Sanborn Fire Insurance map on the lower half of the slide, still outlined in red. Considering the history of the property, CPED finds that the subject property does not have individual significance under any of the 7 criteria, and it does not appear to be eligible for individual local landmark designation. So now we have to take a step back and take a look at the history of the Washburn Park area, and I need a brief drink of water. This area was platted in 1886 and planned as a garden suburb by a group of prominent businessmen. They wanted a suburban residential community that would be accessible to the central business district by streetcar. Renowned landscape architect Horace W.S. Cleveland designed the layout of the neighborhood with curvilinear streets and relatively large lots, taking into account the layout of the location near Minnehaha Creek, which you can see along the bottom of this boundary, and the hilly topography of the neighborhood. This is how the neighborhood got its present nickname of Tangletown. However, the garden suburb was not as successful as they had hoped, and many lots remained undeveloped by the turn of the 20th century. In the early 1900s, the city replatted much of the neighborhood to allow for higher density housing and to attract less affluent families. As a result, the area experienced prolific development from the 1900s to the 1930s. There are many period revival style houses in the area, which were very popular at the time, and many of the houses were also designed by architects. The area shown here and identified as the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District contains about 600 properties. CPED finds that the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District does appear eligible for local designation as a historic district under criteria 3, 4, and 5. Under criterion 3, the potential historic district's curvilinear streets and unusual street pattern are distinctive elements of neighborhood identity. These aspects, in addition to the hilly topography and relationship to Minnehaha Creek, contribute to its plan as a garden suburb, which gives it significance under criterion 5 as a distinctive landscape design or pattern of development. Under criterion 4, the potential historic district is significant for its architecture because it includes a great and intact collection of many period revival houses. Further research could identify additional criteria for which the potential historic district is eligible. The subject property at 400 Prospect Avenue helps convey the significance of the potential historic district under each of these criteria. It is sited along a curvilinear street on a hilly and larger lot and is an example of Italian Renaissance Revival architecture. So then the next question is whether the subject property and the potential historic district retain integrity. When we use the term integrity, this refers to how much they retain their features that demonstrate historical significance. We often think of the original features as being the important ones, or the features that were present when the place achieved its significance. Integrity is assessed based on the exterior of the property only and is different from condition. Staff finds that the subject property has a high degree of integrity and retains all 7 aspects, which are location, setting, design, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. In considering the potential historic district, staff finds that the potential historic district also retains sufficient integrity in the 7 areas to convey its significance. Properties within this area have undergone some degree of change since they were originally built. Some may have replacement cladding, windows, and/or doors. Others may have received additions, typically on the rear, and they may have also built replacement garages or other accessory structures. But there has been very little change to the area in terms of the primary buildings on each lot and the street patterns. This slide shows the language from the ordinance about how the HBC should make your decision today. If the HBC determines that the property is not a historic resource, then you would approve the demolition. If the HBC determines that the property is a historic resource, then you would deny the demolition and direct staff to prepare a designation study of the property unless you decide that the applicant meets their burden of proof regarding the 2 findings. For the destruction of a historic resource, 1 of 2 findings must be met, as shown here. The first is that the destruction is necessary to correct an unsafe or dangerous condition on the property. Staff finds that the demolition is not necessary to correct an unsafe or dangerous condition. The applicant has not provided technical reports to demonstrate any unsafe or dangerous conditions at the property. The Truth in Sale of Housing report from November 2022 also did not identify any unsafe or dangerous conditions. The second is that there are no reasonable alternatives to destruction, which could be related to significance, integrity, or the economic value or usefulness of the existing structure. Staff finds that there are reasonable alternatives to demolition. Although the subject property does not have individual historical significance, it is representative of the historical significance of the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District. The subject property retains its integrity, and demolition of the subject property will impact the potential historic district's integrity and ability to convey its historical significance. The subject property is located across the street from the Washburn Park Water Tower, which is an individually designated local landmark, and this particular placement is integral to the cohesive layout of the potential historic district and the potential historic district's ability to convey its historical significance. Staff acknowledges that the applicant has identified various issues with the condition of the house, as you may have seen in the photos in the application. Evidence of water intrusion and deteriorated plaster are visible. However, the applicant has not provided supporting technical documentation of roof failure, masonry failure, issues in the foundation, or the presence of hazardous materials. Additionally, the subject property appears to have been disconnected from city water and sewer lines in September 2023 through the approval of associated water and sewer permits that had been submitted in anticipation of the demolition of the property. Disconnection from city water and sewer is not evidence that the property is deteriorated beyond repair. Staff finds that the rehabilitation of the property is a reasonable alternative to demolition, considering current use, costs of renovation, and feasible alternative uses. The building could continue to be used as a single-family dwelling. I know the applicant has also expressed an interest in increasing housing density with the project. This could be achieved through construction of an accessory dwelling unit or potential conversion into a duplex. Either option offers an alternative use that is feasible within the zoning of the property, which is R1 under the Minneapolis Plan for Sustainable Growth, or UN1 under Minneapolis 2040. The applicant recommends a budget of at least $750,000 to restore the house, but did not provide specific line items to support this estimate. The applicant also suggests restoration is not cost-effective, given current building practices and professional skill levels. Staff proposes rehabilitation as a more appropriate treatment for the historic property than restoration, which would return the property to a specific moment in time. Rehabilitation allows for repairs, alterations, and additions, while preserving the aspects that are critical to the property's ability to convey the historical significance of the potential historic district. Our staff regularly work with applicants who are proposing alterations to historic properties, need to meet code requirements, and also need to meet preservation guidelines and standards. The vast majority of our designated properties in Minneapolis are designated only on the exterior, which gives property owners extensive flexibility with interior changes. It is possible that rehabilitation could result in a different cost from what is proposed by the applicant. In summary, these are the staff findings for this application. Number one, the subject property at 400 Prospect Avenue is not individually listed in or eligible for listing in the NRHP. Number two, the subject property does not appear to be eligible for designation as an individual local landmark under any criteria in Chapter 599.210. Number three, no unsafe or dangerous conditions have been proven to exist on the property. Number four, the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District has been determined eligible for listing in the NRHP. Number five, the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District is eligible for local district designation under criteria 3, 4, and 5. Number six, the subject property lies within the boundary of the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District. The demolition of the subject property will impact the historical integrity of the potential historic district. And number seven, there are reasonable alternatives to the demolition, considering the significance, integrity, and economic value or usefulness of the existing structure. Staff recommends that the Heritage Preservation Commission adopt staff findings for the demolition of historic resource application by Tim Helene of Helene Company on behalf of Daniel Ophelt for the property located at 400 Prospect Avenue in the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District, and deny the demolition of historic resource application, establish interim protection, and direct the planning director to prepare or cause to be prepared a designation study of the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District. Please be advised that denial of this application must be tied to establishing interim protection and initiating the designation study of the potential historic district. Interim protection would affect all properties in the potential historic district. This would mean that any exterior alteration to any property in the boundary would be subject to a preservation review. We essentially treat the potential historic district as a designated historic district until the designation study is complete. The designation study would examine whether or not this should be a historic district and what the boundaries would be. It would go through a multi-stage review process ending with City Council for a final decision. Staff has received several written comments from the public on this project, which have been given to you. In staff's assessment, I feel 1 supports demolition, 6 oppose demolition, and 3 offer commentary on the project but do not take a specific stance. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to stay for questions. The applicant is also here and would like to make a presentation.
Thank you for that report. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Commissioner Melblom.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Howard and Ms. Kay. I have a question. The last of the recommendations, you're saying that that we should direct the planning director to prepare stat cause to be established a designation study. Why now and not in the past? Because a couple of weeks ago we had, I think, a project where they wanted to demolish the garage. So what triggered that now versus previous?
Chair Howard, Commissioner Milblom, can I ask a clarifying question? Are you specifically asking what is triggering the designation study part of
Yes.
it? Okay. So as written in ordinance, when this type of application is under review, the option is either to approve demolition or to deny demolition and establish interim protection and initiate the designation study. Those 2 pieces have to go with denying the demolition. And this is specifically when we're dealing with historic resources that have not been designated. So I don't believe I was the one working on the project you were referring to, but sometimes when a demolition of a garage comes before you all, it's because it's already part of a designated landmark or historic district. That demolition for something that's already designated does not go through a demolition of historic resource process. Instead, it goes through a certificate of appropriateness application because it's already designated.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Vandereyck.
Just to piggyback on that then, so, to clarify, sorry, I got a lot of paper in front of me right now. So if we were to direct the designation study, basically what we're asking is, because we already have a designation study that says that this is a potential historic district based on what we just talked about. So are you saying that we would be directing to clarify that this is indeed a contributing to structure to that? Is that what we'd be giving you direction to do, just to make sure I understand?
Sure. Chair Howard, Commissioner Vandereyck, thanks for the question. We do not have a designation study for this district. We have some previous studies that were done that studied National Register eligibility. The survey in 2005 that recommended that this area could be a local district was a reconnaissance survey, also known as a windshield survey. So it was really just scratching the surface. But the formal designation process had not, or study process was not undertaken and has not been undertaken for this district or potential
Thank you.
district.
Now that you say that, I recall that. Thank you.
Commissioner Melblom.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Howard and Ms. Kay. So I have a follow-up to the follow-up. If we are to recommend the designation study, what are the steps then that take this to become an actual designated historic district?
Sure. Chair Howard, Commissioner Melblom, so you're asking about what is that designation study process. So if you decide today to deny demolition, establish interim protection, and initiate the designation study, first that decision would be subject to a 10-calendar day appeal in which any member of the public could appeal the decision. That appeal would then, if an appeal is filed, it would be heard by the Business Inspection, Housing, and Zoning Committee of the City Council. They would make a decision. Typically, that decision is upheld by city council. And so they could either support the HPC decision and deny the appeal, or they could overturn the HPC decision and grant the appeal. Again, in this scenario that you have denied demolition. So say through the process, whether there's an appeal or not, the final action is that demolition is denied, interim protection is established, and we start a designation study. It would be up to staff to then figure out how to do this designation study. We have about a year to do the study. In recent years, we have hired a consultant to do that study. It would involve research. It would involve survey of the properties in the area. So that would be photographs from the right-of-way, of the exterior of the properties, and then an analysis as to whether or not this area meets any of the 7 criteria. So I presented to you today staff's initial findings as to which criteria we feel it has significance under. It would be up to that designation study to decide, do they agree? Are there additional criteria that might warrant consideration? And then in the research process also, what is the appropriate boundary for this district? What is the area that contains the properties that convey this significance? So when the study is complete, there is then, I think it's about a 4-month review process. The study has to be reviewed by staff. It has to go to the State Historic Preservation Office, the City Planning Commission. It'll come to you. It'll then go to the Business Inspection, Housing, and Zoning Committee of the City Council for a decision, and then City Council for a final decision.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you very much. I will now open the public hearing for this item, and I understand the applicant is here and would like to speak. Just be sure to state your name and address for the record.
I'm gonna get the screen ready for you.
How do I get them full? Just double click on them.
Yeah, and then you can just arrow.
Page
You
there.
do the mouse over.
Okay, there we go. This is working? All right. I'm Dan Ofelt. My address is 6009 Ewing Avenue in Edina, Minnesota. And I, along with my wife Allison, who's over there, are the owners of the property at 400 Prospect Avenue. After reading through the CPED or CPED report, I am glad that they came to the same conclusion that I did when I put in this application, that it is not historically significant, at least on an individual level. The style, the architect, the previous owners, and nothing about the property is considered historically significant according to the report. However, they are still recommending the denial of our application, which I am still trying to understand. The house is in extremely rough condition. There are pictures in the report. There are, oh, I gotta click this. There are pictures in the report, but these are just some additional pictures that just show the condition in which we bought it. The TISH report shows a large number of safety issues. I don't know if they count as dangerous or not, but there were a list of, I think, 13 items that needed to be fixed within a certain number of days if anyone were to inhabit the house. This includes cracks in the foundation, fire hazards, water intrusion, and more. The property was purchased with many of the contents of the previous owner, and it was only after we cleared out the house that we discovered the true extent of the deterioration. Plaster is falling off of every ceiling, leaking from the roof. There's leaking from the roof, years of water damage, rotting, and again, that cracked foundation, which is problematic. To renovate the property, a property like this to become an upscale home, which is a type of house I think the Tankletown neighborhood deserves, we have estimated that the cost would be roughly $350 a square foot. Our estimated new home construction cost would be about $250 a square foot, putting the difference between those two at about $100 a square foot to renovate versus to build a new home. For a home this size, which is roughly 2,200 square feet above ground, not including the basement, that equates to over $220,000 of additional costs for renovation without adding any economic value additionally for the renovation versus a new home. Even after all of the cost, the existing home would retain its old basement, and it would not meet energy standards, which I believe is something very important to the extreme conditions and weather that we have here in Minnesota. There are also no acceptable alternative uses for this property that I believe. other than single-family home, which Aaron mentioned. The report mentions converting the home into a duplex. However, with the Minneapolis 2040 plan currently on hold, I believe that would require rezoning, and we also do not want to become landlords. An accessory dwelling unit was mentioned as a way to increase density, but 2 new homes would also increase density, and each of those homes could have an ADU, thus doubling the density if that is a concern. Density seems a little bit like a buzzword today, but in practical terms for us, we would love to add 2 new families to the neighborhood. A duplex or an ADU does not allow 2 new families to own a home on this street. Tangletown is a beautiful area of Minneapolis with distinct topography and proximity to Minnehaha, and we believe that more families should have access. After reading through the entire report, I was surprised by the conclusion that CPED came to, despite their own findings. Per the chapter 599.211 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances, a historic resource is a property that is believed to have historical, cultural, architectural, archaeological, or engineering significance, and to meet at least one of the criteria for designation as a landmark or historic district. And according to the report, this property does not meet any of the criteria. The report did state that the potential Washburn Park Residential Historical District meets the definition of criteria 3, 4, and 5. Criteria 3 referencing the curvilinear streets, and criteria 5 referencing landscape design will in no way be impacted by a new home. The streets will remain short and curvy, and the landscape design will only be improved. Criteria 4, referencing the period revival homes in the area, also seems to be unaffected, given that the report states, in CPED's opinion, it is not necessary to restore the subject property to its original form and appearance. Keeping this home solely for its cracking foundation does not seem to be in the spirit of the preservation of a potential historic district. As recently as 2005, a study was done of the Washburn Park area. No action was taken at that time to make it a historical district, and no action has been taken since it was first proposed in 1981. For over 40 years, this potential historic district has not been made historic. As the recent purchasers of this non-historic property in a non-historic district, it places an undue burden on us to attempt to alter the status of an entire district at the very moment of our application. This is further exacerbated by the fact that there is precedent for demolition of properties in this district as recently as this year. In June, a similar application was filed. It stated that the home was not individually significant and referenced the same 3 criterion for the potential Washburn Park Historic District. The application for demolition was approved, and no designation study was ordered. Given the similarity of the details of these 2 properties, to approve the application brought by a large property developer in June, and then not to come to the same conclusion on this application of a small home builder feels problematic at best. So we are asking that you approve our demolition of a historic resource application and allow us to improve the tapestry of the neighborhood by weaving beautiful new homes into the existing landscape, geography, and natural topography that Tangletown is known for. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant? Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair Howard. I'm wondering if you have a photo of the cracked foundation.
I do not. It was referenced in the Tisch report, but let's see here. That's the only picture of the basement I have. Honestly, I try to spend not a lot of time. If that would be something that I could get, I can get it on.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak for or against this application? We do have a list, so I'm going to start with that, and we are going to limit it to 2 minutes. And that's being tracked down at that end of the table. So we're starting with Sarah Maskey. And forgive me if I pronounce names wrong. Be sure to state your name and address for the record.
You did great. Good afternoon, Chair Howard and members of the committee. I'm at 2 minutes and 7 seconds, so I'm going to do my best to trim that down. I am Sarah Maskey, speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, Christopher Garan. We live at 5053 Belmont. We decided to purchase a home in Tangletown in the summer of 2019. We were lucky to have our pick of many parts of the Twin Cities to call home. However, this neighborhood, Tangletown, We chose to call home for reasons so many other families do, and is evidenced in Tom Belkam's heavily attended historical walking tours. Like others, we were drawn most notably to the neighborhood's charm, integrity, and beautiful winding streets of historic homes. Homes where owners take pride in their properties, homes where neighbors and friends care about each other, a community centered around a history we all find value in. It's both clear and disappointing the current owner of 400 Prospect doesn't understand our community in this way. They bought a building without it ever hitting the open market, eliminating the chance for someone to purchase it who sees its value. Having no interest in community input or advice, the owner has left the property open for over a year to trespass, animal, and element intrusion. This has caused the property to suffer and degrade since the original owner moved out. Leaving doors and windows open with a can of lighter fluid out in the open leads me to no other explanation than this is a way of inviting arsonists and vandals. I encourage the city to require the owner of the property to not only secure the building access points, but to also winterize the building to meet city requirements for vacant buildings. Based on the current condition of the property and our own personal experience with rehabilitating old homes, we agree with the board, with the CPED board, that 400 Prospect is not beyond salvage, and its highest and best use does not conform with its demolition, lot division, or the construction of alarmingly amateurish modern construction that has no consideration for the surrounding historical integrity. For these reasons, our household supports both the approval of the Historic District study and the denial of demolition for 400 Prospect. Thank you.
Thank you. Just at 2 minutes. Next is Spencer Bartle.
I'll try also to keep it within 2 minutes, but I'll be slightly over. So, Spencer Bartle, I'm at 146 Prospect. So, when we purchased our home on Prospect Avenue, we did so because of the historic charm, integrity of the neighborhood. We were drawn to the character, architectural interest, and history of this area. You can tell as you walk the curving streets that each home was thoughtfully planned and designed by architects and tradespeople skilled in their craft who built homes that would last beyond 100 years. The Robb family built their home at 400 Prospect in 1926, and it is likely they are the only home in our charming street to have stayed with its original family since it was built. Over a year ago, the home was sold by Betty Robb, who hadn't known another home since moving into 400 Prospect when she was just 1 year old. For the first time in nearly 100 years, it was sold to those who now make their application for its destruction. They seem to have no understanding of our appreciation for the neighborhood, as their burning desire is to destroy this home and build 2 high-priced and cheaply designed boxes in its place. There has been no consideration for the existing architectural composition of the neighborhood. Their interest, as they stated to us early in October, is to maximize their return on their investment and sell each box for over $1 million. Anyone who desires a home in Tangletown and who can spend more than $1 million will expect far more than what they have proposed or can deliver. For more than a year, they have willfully, knowingly, and continuously neglected the property. It is unsecured with doors and windows left wide open, allowing continuous damage by animals, people, and the elements. They have been inflicting as much passive damage as possible to reach their singular goal, the destruction of this home so that they can split the lot and maximize their profits. The property owner has shown no proof or factually based indication that the home is unsafe or structurally unsound. Prior to their possession, the home had been continuously occupied since it was built in 1926. Having walked through the home with the developer's permission, I found there to be cosmetic damage, sure, but could not find a creak in the floor or stairs, which is something I cannot say for my own home, which was built in 1929. The bones of the home seem solid, well built, and ready to be reinvigorated. Our homes were built with quality materials and craftsmanship to ensure that they last for a very long time. I do not believe that this home is beyond saving.
Thank you for those comments. Sarah Bartle.
I'm Sarah Bartle. I live at 146 Prospect. I'm here today in support of the proposal before the commission denying the demolition of the Robb home at 400 Prospect Avenue. As a young kid being raised in the south suburbs, I remember taking trips to the Lake Harriet Bandshell in the summer with my parents. We would take the parkway and wind our way through the neighborhood, passing the homes of Tangletown. each home unique in its design and charming details. I can easily say that this is my earliest memory of truly taking in and appreciating unique and historic residential architecture and design, one that would stick with me and lead me to a career in the architecture and design community, and would eventually lead me and my husband to purchasing a home a few doors down from 400 Prospect Avenue. Before attending the meeting with the builder in mid-October, I was optimistic with hope that the plans for the Robb home would involve a restoration that returned the home to its former glory as a jewel on our block. But instead, I was dismayed with the plans I saw and was left reeling with questions for the developer. And by the way, you guys should ask to see the plans that they're proposing. My questions were, was neighborhood context considered when drawing these plans? Were historically appropriate materials and details considered when drawing these plans? Or were they just drawn in the absence of design to squeeze in the architectural equivalent of two sore thumbs for maximum profit? For this reason, and in addition to the reasons my neighbors have and will share today about negligence, greed, and irresponsible investing, I vehemently oppose the destruction of this home and strongly urge this commission to deny its demolition and to move forward with a historic district study. And while that study is happening, I urge the current owner to actually visit the neighborhood. Try hard for a moment to take in the context that surrounds 400 Prospect. Take in the homes that our neighbors have lovingly maintained and conserved for over 100 years, and then post a for sale sign so someone who actually cares about good design, history, and conservation can be the next stewards of 400 Prospect Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Tom Balcom.
Hi, I'm Tom Balcom. I grew up in Minneapolis and have lived in Tangletown for 45 years. The neighborhood has always fascinated me, starting out with the question, what's the story behind that water tower? I published an article for Minnesota Historical Society in the 1980s and started giving walking tours of the neighborhood at that time. The Washburn Water Tower is always the highlight of the tour because it's on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's just a fabulous, totally unique structure. The Tangletown Neighborhood Association has recently established a historic interpretive sign on the stairs near the base of the tower. I'd like to introduce the Tangletown Neighborhood History newsletter as an exhibit for the 400 Prospect hearing. This, I think each of you have a copy of this now. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, the introductory phrases are, Tangletown is a charming southwest Minneapolis neighborhood named for its winding and hilly tree-lined streets. The neighborhood is highlighted by Minnehaha Creek and architecturally unique homes. If the 400 Prospect Avenue house can't be rehabilitated or restored, these factors need to be strongly considered when replacement housing and increases in density are being proposed in Tangletown, especially in the vicinity of the historically significant water tower. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you. Could you state your address for the record?
I'm sorry, I had
That's
that
okay.
written up here too. 5129 Garfield Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Next on the list is Kate Potrals? No? Close?
Hi, my name is Kate Potratz at 401 West 50th. I share a property line with 400 Prospect, and I'm speaking today against the teardown of the property and in support of the study to further evaluate the historic area of Tangletown. I chose to live in Tangletown because of its spread of historic homes with tree-lined backyards, tucked within the creek and around the water tower, but still within walking distance of city resources. The address at 400 Prospect is in a unique position because its appearance adds to the character and aura of the historic Washburn Water Tower itself. If the house is torn down, the block and water tower would lose its historic charm, and the two extremely narrow lots will be out of step with the other lots on the block and the character of the area. My concern is also for the other homes around the water tower. If this home is torn down, more will surely follow. This is just the beginning of a loss of architectural beauty in our neighborhood. The house was purchased by an LLC off-market after nearly 100 years of ownership by the same family. There was no chance for the market to respond to the sale. The developer told neighbors they had hopes to save the house. However, there is a surveyor report from December of 2022, completed just weeks after the sale of 400 Prospect, with proposed surveying plans for lot splitting, which makes it clear that rehabilitation was not a goal of the purchase of the home. The developer has detailed in his application that the empty house with its sewer and water cut off is more likely to fall into further disrepair as a reason for his request for immediate teardown. And I want to point out that the developer is the one who chose to cut off the water and sewer and leave the property vacant. I respectfully ask that this house is saved. If the current developer does not want to, I request he post it for sale so that a new buyer who appreciates the neighborhood style could purchase the property. Considering all points above, I believe a historic study on the area should begin to evaluate the risk of future loss of historical resources. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Next on the list is Leslie Legg.
Hello, my name is Leslie Legg. I live at 5025 Belmont Avenue South. I moved to Tangletown with my husband 20 years ago because I wanted to live in a historic home in Minneapolis, but also have space to garden. My children attended neighborhood public schools and graduated from Washburn. We've watched sunsets and fireworks from the top of the Washburn Water Tower. We've long admired the distinctive home at 400 Prospect Avenue at the base of the water tower. We knew that Elizabeth Robb, the former owner, was born in the home or moved there shortly thereafter, and had lived there for more than 90 years. Her pug used to follow us and our dog when we walked around the neighborhood. In the fall of 2022, Betty's home was quietly sold off market. I found out when I walked by, and I saw a dusty wicker bassinet along with other antique furniture on the front lawn. I asked about the property. I gave my phone number and was not contacted back. I was told it was being sold privately, quietly, off market. Last week, we were shocked to learn that the new owner of the property had applied for a demo permit stating that skills didn't exist in the city to restore the home. The city's Truth in Housing report indicated that the home's basic systems had passed inspection the month before it was purchased, although there was evidence of an underground fuel tank and the plaster walls needed significant repair. People have been restoring homes in this neighborhood for years. You can see that by the cohesive streetscapes and the need to dodge dumpsters for remodeling projects. I would encourage the city to provide more time for new buyers interested in restoring the home to come forward before a wrecking permit is approved. I am also potentially supportive of a historic district study anchored around the water tower if it could help save this home and preserve the character of the neighborhood. Tangletown has accommodated density in the past via brick duplexes along Nicollet Avenue and subdivided homes along the creek. We should be able to accommodate the city's plan for growth without tearing down the features that make the neighborhood unique. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the list, and I'm going to get this wrong, E. Van Dam? Vern Dam? Thank you.
Hi.
Name and
Hi,
address for the
everyone.
record.
My name is Liz Van Dam, and I live at 5816 Grandview Boulevard in Mound, Minnesota. It's almost near South Dakota, it seems like to me. I lived at 52nd and Belmont from 1997 until 2003. And this is my introduction to Tangletown. We moved to Minneapolis from Florida. I came house shopping Easter time 1997. I'd never seen a place frozen in what I believed to be springtime. We looked at the homes in the suburbs, Apple Valley, Eagan, Minnetonka, and my heart sank. I can't live here. This place is bleak. And we all know what it looks like. In April, it's all shades of gray, very dirty snow. My husband was an airline pilot who flew over Tangletown daily. You all know those planes. Yeah. And he told me about this place where the streets curve around the houses, and the houses look something like out of storybooks. My response, I want the first house that comes available. I walked my dog through the neighborhood, never having lived anywhere like Tangletown. I stared at the houses and their doors and the home designs, feeling like I had been transported into Norman Rockwell's poster. I taught my children to drive a manual transmission on the curvy streets, knowing that if they could learn to drive a stick in Tangletown, they could drive anywhere. During the time that I lived in Tangletown, I did author a book on the neighborhood, The Doors of Tangletown, a historical reflection of Washburn Park. And I have given each of you a poster, and you'll see the last house to the far right is 4800 Prospect. That is Betty Robb's home. I did an interview of her and asked her if I could add that door to my book. As my friend and colleague Tom Balcom shared this afternoon, and when he wrote in the foreword for my book, Tangletowners remain one of the most desirable neighborhoods for well over a century. Its first non-farming resident was the illustrious Harry Weil Jones. The architect and his house, not the architect, but his house still stands at Nicollet and Elmwood Place East. And you probably know his other designs from the beautiful Lakewood Chapel, Butler Square building, and of course the gorgeous water tower that sits across from 400 Prospect. When I interviewed Betty, she said she remembered as a child of 8 sitting at her doorstep and watching that water tower. Watching the water tower? Better? Oh, God. Okay, last thing. Thank you for this opportunity to tell my story. And I do share the opinion of many of my Tangletown residents that the desirable flavor of the neighborhood that has long been its distinction would be marred by raising the Betty Robb home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Jennifer Erickson.
Yes, good evening, sorry about my voice. I'm Jennifer Erickson. I'm at 309 West 50th Street. My late husband and I bought that house in 1989. We have raised a family there. I can see Betty Robb's house from my backyard. One of the significant, I don't want to repeat what's been said before, but one of the reasons we bought the house is because that block, 50th Street and Prospect, have very deep lots because the neighbors voted in the 1940s to remove the alleyway. And that's a unique feature of that entire block, which I'm very strongly against splitting these lots because there are very few of them in our area. The other significance about 400 Prospect is its proximity to the historic water tower. It's an amazing feature for the neighborhood. And, and the other significant feature is the fact that one family lived in that house for close to 100 years, and very little substantial alterations were done to it. So I believe there is significant historical interest here. The architectural integrity needs to be preserved in that area for future generations. And I know from living in my house that these houses were built far better than the houses built today. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Rob Bedeau.
Thank you. I'm impressed that you got my last name correct. It's Robert Bedeau. I'm at 5009 Gladstone. Been in my house now for 20 years. So as much as my neighbor said, the reasons we moved there is for the architectural significance of the neighborhood, the beauty, the streets, the layout. And that's one of the things that's really important to us there. When this came up as an issue for teardown, the purchaser shared with us some potential designs of the house, and as had been mentioned, they're very amateurish looking, and they just don't fit within the neighborhood, and it really detracts. I have some photos that I'm happy to share with you if you'd like of those designs. We also toured the house just a few months ago, and while there are some issues with the house being the plaster and the sort, the house was built in 1920s. Houses built like that are strong-boned, and it's ready to be rehabilitated. One last thing I just want to say, we're not an anti-construction neighborhood. As a matter of fact, that was mentioned, a lot of the houses have been added on to, new garages have been built, but all with the idea that it maintains the character of the neighborhood and what's already there. As a matter of fact, we did an addition on our house with an architect to make sure that it does fit within the neighborhood. Another example is I think most of the people here are pretty comfortable with what's happening at 5005 Lindale. Right in the corridor there, the transit corridor is a potential multifamily dwelling that's being constructed. So this particular house and location really just isn't the time or place for this type of a tear down to happen. So I would agree with my neighbors that I'd really like to see this denied, this demolition denied. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Laura Biscoff.
Hi. I didn't think Laura Bischoff, I live at 5801 James Avenue South, Kenny neighborhood. I didn't think I was going to speak, so here we go. I lived at both 330 Prospect on the east side of 400 and 408 Prospect on the west side of 400, and I knew Betty very well, living on both sides of her for over 8 years. I'm an interior designer, so I have a huge appreciation of architecture and design. And when I got to meet Betty, one of the very first things she told me about her house and all of the houses on the top of that water tower hill was that they were all built originally with color impregnated plaster. Hers had not ever been painted, and it has not to this day. And she commented jokingly on how there's 65 years of nicotine on them, but they're still in restorable shape. She also mentioned that the wood floors in all of those homes were oiled. She helped me immensely with renovating both houses on both sides of hers to get back to the original. She grew up in that neighborhood, and she talked about rubbing her hand on the tongue and groove floor in mine at 408 Prospect while listening to Jack Benny on a radio. So history is hugely important there. I understand the buyer's perspective in wanting to, profit from renovating or tearing down homes or whatever. I've renovated 12 homes myself. I've renovated 330 Prospect and 408, but both with absolute historic renovation in mind versus, gutting things and doing things that are non-period. So I'm very careful about that. And because we've been so careful about it, we've always prospered from flipping those houses. But we lived in them and never really meant to, flip those houses. It's just how it kind of happened. So anyway, I guess I understand change. I understand all of those things, but I'm very confident that that house could easily be restored. There was not plaster falling down when I saw Betty the last time, and so I think there's another way. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. That was the last on my list. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? State your name and address for the record, and you'll have to sign one of these after the fact.
Will do. Robert Danaker, 319 Longview Terrace. I wrote the public comment, which is the last one in the packet, and I just wanted to stand tonight to acknowledge that part, but also acknowledge my neighbors for coming out in mass tonight to support the recommendation of the staff to deny the demolition permit. I'll just briefly mention what's in my comments. One is I believe the owner and the applicant have been derelict in their duty to properly secure the property and to preserve the property in the condition it was in purchase. And I think we've heard ample evidence of that tonight from my neighbors with firsthand accounts of some of the same. My second major point was that the owner and applicant have actively damaged the property since the purchase of the property, which is evident in the photographs. I reference how to see that in the photographs that were supplied by the applicant. And have been evident to all of our neighbors as well. And I see the nods of heads. The last thing I'm going to mention is not in my letter, is that I'm a government employee myself, and I know that processes like this are only successful with integrity and holding firm to the process itself. What we've heard tonight from my neighbors and what's evident in this entire process is that the question of integrity is really pertinent in this whole process as well from the applicant. We've been told at different times that there was plans to renovate and live in the house. The applicant tonight introduced himself with an address in Edina. I was really hoping that the address that was mentioned was 400 Prospect. That's not what we heard, and I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any others who wish to speak for or against this application? Go ahead.
Thank you, committee. My name is Allison Olfelt, and I live at 6009 Ewing Avenue in Edina. My husband and I bought this house when it was brought to us by someone who knew the family who had lived there, and it was actually under the trust that it was owned because Betty was no longer capable to make the decisions for herself. So it was being guardianed by her niece and her husband. So it wasn't some back alley dealing. We are related to family builders. We wanted to invest in this way. It was brought to us. And I guess I'm not going to counter everything, but I'd be remiss if I let accusations of intentional dereliction of property care or active damaging of something that we purchased. I just can't. We bought a property and it was a hoarder house and we moved things. I have photos from the day we walked through it, from before we purchased it. Truly, genuinely, if you want to see what it actually looked like, I would be happy to show you and scroll through my photos. Lastly, also truly, genuinely, if someone would like to purchase this property, please do come speak to us after. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any others who wish to speak for or against the application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and let me just say thank you everyone who came to speak in public, because I know it's not easy for all of you, and we appreciate hearing perspective on all sides. Commissioners, let's discuss. I wanted to also mention, a couple of you offered to show the images of the plans for the property. That's not part of what's before us today, so we're just acting on the demolition, so we don't need to see that. It doesn't factor into the decision we need to make today. Commissioner Bjornberg.
I'm like, might as well get this started.
Thank
First off, I would like to echo the sort of thanks to everybody who has come out and spoken and sort of given their piece. It's really helpful within this process, and it is not an easy thing to do. That being said, I feel like this is a very interesting scenario, especially because I feel like we were just talking about this neighborhood and talking about sort of the timeline for what has happened, how it has sort of gone in starts and stops, and we're sort of now back at this place again. So I think that one of the things that is really challenging for me is that I don't know how we can move forward without having a actual designation study on this neighborhood. I think that we sort of have a responsibility to continue to move this forward and hopefully have a final decision about if this is a historic district and what is contributing or not to that historic district. I will say that also reading through this, the 600 homes within this area, it's such a large number. So I feel like this is one of those things that we are just going to continue to hear about if we are not moving forward on it. So that's sort of half of that. I think that there's this other piece about this specific property. I will say that one of the things that for me is a big consideration is its proximity to other properties within this area. I think that specifically within its proximity to that Washburn Water Tower. So I think that for me, it feels like I don't know how we would sort of not be putting on interim protections to go through the process of the study. Happy to hear from everyone else.
Thank you, Commissioner Bjornberg. I appreciate the comments, and I know one of the things that came up in the public testimony was the fact that we had looked at something earlier this year. That was on Lyndale, I believe, so it was on the edge of the district on a commercial corridor that kind of is its own thing, whereas this property really is right at the heart of the district by the water tower, and that makes it a different case. And as we know, precedent in what we do plays differently depending on the specifics of individual applications. Other comments? Vice Chair Sanderbolt. Sandabolt. See, I'll just keep.
Thank you,
I've
Chair
only
Howard.
known you for how many years?
Chair Howard, I would like to ask a question of staff, if that's permissible at this point.
Yes.
My question for staff, Aaron, is I just want to clarify and make sure that I understand. If we establish interim protection, that does not in any way prevent the sale of the property, correct?
Chair Howard, Vice Chair Sandbolt, interim protection would apply to any permits or construction projects within that boundary. So it would not be related to any property sales, or it would not restrict any property sales in the boundary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sandbolt. Did you have anything else to add to that?
As long as I have the mic, I guess, I will add my thoughts. I do want to acknowledge for the owner, the status of this neighborhood has made me uncomfortable for quite some time. I do feel the pain that is having a property in a potentially historic district. It is outside of the control of my legacy on this board to be able to influence that status. I think it is a very difficult status for a neighborhood to contend with. I think it makes it difficult for every property, and it is a little bit of an onerous item to have hanging over everyone's heads. So I truly do kind of have some sympathy for you in the situation of buying a property in the potentially historic district and not knowing what kind of application process may apply, and also feeling the brunt of, are we the property that is going to be the canary that brings something upon a neighborhood? That being said, unfortunately, we are where we are, and I think we need to consider, for the longevity of this neighborhood, bringing this to a head and finally doing the designation study and making it clear for everyone involved. So while I know that that might feel like an onerous kind of status for your property in particular, I do think that it's something that's important for us to do and to settle and resolve once and for all. And that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Other commissioners?
Thank you, Chair. I guess I don't have a ton to add other than that I echo the sentiment of my fellow commissioners. I would provide, some thoughts on the conversations that we've had about this neighborhood previously. It didn't seem like the appropriate time, like the properties that were before us, based on our conversations and our dialogue, didn't seem to break the dam to go through this process of the designation study. And Tangletown's not the only neighborhood that has this unique area. And this is a result of us living in an old city with a lot of old buildings, and a lot of context that those old buildings bring together, and us not having time and capacity at a staff level to designate all of the potentially historic districts that exist. So this weird spot that Tangletown is in is just a result of trying to make sure that we don't make decisions that the city will learn to regret. And so, this particular property, it's like Commissioner Sandbolt said, it's difficult because we could have at any time, I suppose, said, all right, now's the time, Tangletown, let's figure it out, let's do that. But that we also have several other potentially historic districts that are that as well. So given where the city's at and our ability to evaluate this stuff, this is really what brings it forward. And the last time we had a conversation about Tangletown, and I think it is important to note that our decisions are taken in isolation. That's the way we are meant to evaluate each individual applicant. And with that particular applicant, if we're going to reference that as why we should or should not make a decision one way or the other in this particular scenario, which I want to be clear is what I don't think we should do, but let's pretend for a moment to set that aside. That one had continuing factors that I think that this one does not. Like where its location, the building itself. This is a grand structure in a grand neighborhood, and I think it does have the ability to be a contributing building to a historic district. But we don't have the data to do that. The only thing we can do right now is tell our staff to bring that to us. And if we were to punt on this today, then we'll be having this conversation again with the next building. So I think that both this building warrants it, and I think it's time, which I think is what my fellow commissioners voiced as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Vander Eyck. Very well stated. Commissioner Mulblom?
Chair Howard, excuse me, Chair Howard, I have a question for you. My understanding is that the regulations are rather clear that once a historic district has been studied and proposed and found to have the potential, it has to be any demolition permit has to be considered as if it was actually a historic structure. I might have butchered exactly how I said that, but is that accurate?
I think all demolition, I'm looking to staff, but I think all demolition permits are looked at to see whether or not they would be a historic resource. In this case, we happen to have a study that says we have a potential district. And so when staff would have been called to look at a demolition application, they would have checked their records, seen that we have a potential district, and that's what it is. So all demolition permits are looked at to see whether or not they have a historic resource, not just because it's in this district.
Thank you. I knew that you would be able to answer that
and I'm
with,
seeing nods,
with
so I
clarity.
think I got it right.
So the reason that I asked that question was I think in some ways the supporting the staff recommendation to not permit the demolition is what is being prescribed to us by the regulations. This isn't a decision that we're coming at out of subjectivity, and I wanted to add that because I would agree with the homeowners that you probably could spend $350 a square foot renovating this. I'm an architect, I've renovated homes. I've renovated homes in much worse condition. They can be expensive. That's kind of part of what it is, unfortunately. But it is a beautiful old home, and it would be really a travesty, I think, to have the loss of that home in that location, in the heart of that historic district, that potential historic district, excuse me. You know, the reality is you paid $416,000 for that property in November of 2022, according to Zillow, and they said at that time, I believe it was worth $630,000. So you do have the ability to sell it, which you probably don't want to do because you want to develop it, but there is that out. But to me, the reality is that we have regulations that dictate what we're supposed to do, and we should follow the regulations. Separate from that, but tied into all of this, I will chime in that I equally am happy that we will be implementing, or that we will be recommending that this district moves from a potential historic district to actually study it and determine whether it is or not, because I think it'll take away the ambiguity for everybody that lives in that neighborhood for once and for all. So I'm excited by that, but that doesn't color or doesn't influence my judgment about this particular home in the district.
Thank you, Commissioner Mulblom. Commissioner Maston.
I think I'm going to echo a lot of what I've heard today in that I don't feel ready to say demolition's okay at this point, because I think, especially with its location so close to the water tower, it could very easily become a contributing resource. And with that, I'm going to make a motion. You ready? I'm going to make a motion that the HPC denies the demolition of the historic resource application, establishes interim protection, and directs the planning director to prepare or cause to be prepared a designation study of the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District.
Thank you, Commissioner Maston. Might I suggest that you also adopt staff findings?
Yes, I would like to adopt staff findings.
Thank you. So we have a motion to adopt staff findings, deny the demolition of the historic resource application, establish interim protection, and direct the planning director to prepare a designation study of the potential historic district. Is there a second?
Sandbolt seconds.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sandbolt. Any further discussion?
I just want to make one more clarifying comment because I like to hear my own voice, apparently. There was discussion about, I feel like I need to be closer to this. There was discussion about, and Aaron, you did such a phenomenal job of walking through the process and all of that, because this can be really confusing. There's a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, as everybody's heard today, us commissioners still have learning curves in areas of this policy and procedural stuff. But I think what's important to clarify about a historic district is that the district itself is deemed historic because of its contributing structures. So even if an individual building may not be historic for one reason or the other, if there's enough continuity in the district is historic. And that's an important clarifying piece, because it is my contention that through a study, this building will likely be a contributing structure to a historic district. So I just want to add to that little piece. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Der Eyck. Is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second on the table. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Bjornberg.
Aye.
Chair Howard.
Aye.
Maston.
Aye.
Melblum.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sandbolt.
Aye.
Van Der Eyck.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
Thank you. That motion passes. And that concludes our public hearing items. Next on the agenda, do commissioners or staff have any announcements or commission business to discuss? And we start with staff, and thank you for stepping in, Mr. Skalecki.
Thank you, Chair Howard. I'm Rob Skalecki, Senior City Planner in the Historic Preservation of CPED. I have a few staff updates here. First is the virtual community engagement meeting for the Dinkytown Commercial Historic District Design Guidelines is this Thursday, which is December 14th, and that will be from 6 to 7. This will actually be a virtual meeting that's co-hosted by the Marcy Homes Neighborhood Association, so if any commissioners want to attend, you can definitely reach out to me, and I can send you that invite or the links. We did receive an appeal for the project located at 619 10th Street South, known as the Hinkle House. The Business Inspections Housing and Zoning Committee meeting date for that hearing is yet to be determined in January after new council members are sworn in. Commissioner Struthers is not present tonight, but she is completing her term on the commission this evening. So myself and staff would really like to thank her for her service to the HPC and the city and wish her the best of luck moving forward. And lastly, our first meeting of 2024 will be on January 16th, 2024 in this location right here in the Public Service Building. Our second meeting in January will be at the Public Service Center. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commission, any other business to discuss? Yeah.
I do have an announcement to make. I am going to be leaving New History and have decided to take a position at Leo A. Daily, back where I was previously working. And I will also tangentially be opening my own practice to do smaller renovation type work. So a little change for me. All of the communication from the HPC board is already coming to my personal email address, so most of you have my contact information from that. Nothing should be changing from that direction.
Well, congratulations on the change in career, and it sounds like you're going to have way too many hats to wear. Any other commission business? With that, we have completed all items on the agenda for this meeting. I'll ask members and staff one more time if there are any other matters that must come before this meeting. There being no other business to come before this meeting, and without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. The next regular meeting of the Heritage Preservation Commission is January 16th, 2024, right here in this room.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you all, and thank you all again for coming.